It's Nikki from Stealth Shampoo filling in for Ethan. Hegster TCG top deck number 16, which I just casted, and we have right in front of you here the meta breakdown. Thank you to Cashman27, always making these charts for the community. You can check him out on Twitter at Cashman27, right there on the bottom right. So let's take a look at the breakdown of what people played in top deck number 16, which I casted on twitch.tv/HegsterTCG. We have coming in at number 1, Eternatus. Not very surprising that we saw Eternatus come out at number 1. It's always number 1 or number 2 as far as quantity, but the exact Eternatus list and the variation of it that was very successful in top 8. In fact, we're going to talk about the top 8 in just a little bit. The version of Eternatus that managed to hit the top 8 is going to be a little bit different than I think what most people are expecting. Coming at number 2 is ADPZ. This is not surprising at all. It's an incredibly consistent deck. Everyone has an opinion on it. And it's just really got clean matchups across the board. Now, I think to counter ADPZ, the third most represented deck in top deck number 16 was Blacephalon. We actually saw no Blacephalon players hit the top 8. It was only a top 8 cut this time around. And I think Blacephalon's biggest weakness is itself, and in a best-of-1 format, you draw a little bit not hot enough, and you can take some sad L's. But the Blacephalon player is going to be conquering the Luke Metal players in terms of quantity, and I think in terms of matchup, it's favorable unless the Luke Metal players are playing Tapu Fini, which we'll see in a little bit. Jesse Parker was not piloting any Tapu Fini or Weakness Guard in Luke Metal, so Luke Metal, the next most represented list, as I believe it, presents a pretty good matchup against Eternatus and ADPZ, but the Eternatus lists we saw in the event actually have really teched for Luke Metal in a way that I thought was unexpected. Then we have Centiskorch. Charizard breaks in. This is a really strange deck that's popping up. It's kind of like how everyone was playing Tina Chomp a couple weeks ago. Charizard breaks in is the new flavor of the week. Pikarom, always consistent. Welder. Mew 3 coming in with 6 players. Has a great matchup against ADPZ. Could struggle a little bit against Eternatus, in my opinion, and Blacephalon. But if you slam down that Reshiram Charizard, Mew 3 Welder is eating through Luke Metal. Then we got Welder Box, Torkoal, Mad Party, which we saw present in the top 8. That was cool. Tina Chomp, Whimsicott, Porygon-Z. As long as you don't flip 3 tails in a row, this isn't a meme deck. If you flip heads, you block an attack. If you flip tails, you don't. Whimsicott, of course, if 2 of them go down to ADPZ, that's kind of it, but it does have super effective against ADP, and the fact that Whimsicott's weak to Steel doesn't really matter because Zacian's going to one-shot it anyway, and if Zacian misses, they're going to need to find a switch. It's actually not that bad of a deck right now. We casted a couple games of that. Coming up next is Desijoon. No one playing Desijoon. 2 people playing Desijoon, and you'll see some of the ADP players at top 8 teched for it. It's really weird, right? You tech for Desijoon, it doesn't show up. You don't tech for it, it beats you and wins the whole event. Desijoon has won previous Hegster events, but this time not coming out in the top 8. Other decks being played, we got some control decks. Altaria Glaciopod, the new Altaria from Champions Path. We didn't see any of that on stream. Frostmoth and Teleon doesn't have a great Luke Metal matchup, but looking good against things like ADP and Eternatus. And you could see the Bird Trio was also present. Let's take a little bit closer of a look at the top 16, once again provided by Cashman. We're going to be looking more closely at our top 8 here, but we have some pretty good representation across the board with 3 ADPs, Luke Metal, Eternatus, and Mad Party is what we'll be covering. Also in the top 16, I believe we had about 103 players, as you can see right here. We had exactly 103 players. We had Blacephalon, Pikarom, Welder, Mew also taking second place. Lots of Blacephalon, Centiskorch, more Mad Party, Torkoal Volcanion, Luke Metal. Lots of different types of decks coming in your top 16. Let's take a quick look at the number 8 deck piloted by Juan, bringing in that spicy Mad Party. Now, of course, Mad Party not doing so great against ADP if ADP just goes absolutely ham. And unfortunately, Juan in the round of 8 did come up against an ADP player and lost that game very quickly 2-0. We didn't get to see that one on stream, but if you got to take 3 knockouts and you don't knock out the ADP quick enough, it's just really rough for Mad Party. But it is a great Mew 3 matchup. Any kind of Mew 3, Mad Party is looking to punch directly in the face. Poltegeist is a psychic Pokemon that can exploit Mew 3's weakness to Psychic. And that's really, really going to be useful in that matchup. Mew 3 also has it's weird to say, relatively low pool of health for a 3-prizer, only at 270. You know, we're looking at Eternatus VMAX at 340 nowadays. And so Poltegeist is looking to just nuke Mew 3s out of the game. And so we're running with a little bit of a spread variant here. We got the Wheezing Roxy combo. I'm sure that's not new to any of you guys, discarding the Wheezing for some damage counters. Tool Scrapper also to get past those metal goggles. And nothing too crazy with this list. We do see the inclusion of the Bench Barrier Mew, but pretty straightforward all around. One of the reasons I believe that one included the Coughing over the Wheezing, by the way. You don't want to start Coughing, but including one Coughing over 3 Wheezings, for example, is because you only have one Evolution Incense, and you can search Coughing using Quick Ball and then Roxy it away. So Wheezing's just a little bit less searchable. Even though you're at risk of starting a Coughing, it's not too high. You do have plenty of Bunnelby and Sinisty that you can start with instead and get it out of the active with that U-turn board. Coming in at number 7, we have Christian Chase playing the most consistent list of ADP. Now, I didn't talk to Christian, but he's the only ADP player who was not playing hammers, and consequently, he was also the ADP player who finished 7th, and the other 2 ADP players finished a little bit higher. I play quite a bit of ADP. I know everyone's got an opinion on this deck, but looks like Christian here decided to play the most consistent variant possible, with the only major tech being Tool Scrapper. Very useful in that Luke Metal matchup. We have the Viridian Forest, we have the extra Steel at 9, and the extra Water at 3. I think that's not because he's afraid of prizing 2 Water, which is a 0.8% chance of happening, and we did see a player prize both their ADP. Again, prizing 2 of your 2-ofs is a 0.8. That's less than a 1% chance. Super annoying, but I think the reason for the extra Water is in reaction to the fact that a lot of people have been playing a very high number of Crushing Hammers in events lately. And so if you prize a Water and your Water gets hammered, you're not really having a good time anymore. So the third Water energy kind of fixing those matchups where energy is getting discarded for Luke Metal, and just gives you an easier out to find the Water energy. You got to find the hard copy. We do see a concession as far as energy spinners go, only running 2 of those. We usually 3 or 4 in those lists. Viridian Forest over Chaotic Swell. Those are the 2 different stadiums that we see in ADP lists, and then the air balloons to get things out of the active. We have the switches, and pretty much everything's a 4 of. We are playing the Marnies that will help a little bit against Blacephalon and decks that just want to build big hands. 4 boss, no Pokemon catchers. 4 boss, just requirement nowadays. Everyone seems to be playing 4 boss or Pokemon catchers. The Great Catcher is great for the mirror match, gusting up a Dedenne, not needing to use a supporter slot for the turn. Just in case you need to play that Marnie, you find the Great Catcher, you're good to go. The Mawile, of course, to rip Pokemon out of the hand. Everything else pretty straightforward. 3-1 split on Dedenne Crobat. That's actually something to keep an eye on. People have been moving away from the 2-2 split of Dedenne Crobat. Dedenne is more searchable via Cherish Ball, and Crobat generally will get you less cards. It can get you 6, but Dedenne always gets you 6 unless you have less than 6 in your deck. So congratulations to Christian Chase for finishing at number 7. Coming in the busted, Jesse Parker. Now, I actually commentated on a ton of Jesse's games, and I really had to ask him the question, Jesse, where's the Tapu Fini and where are your weakness guard energies? Jesse said, just dodge fire. And that's what Jesse somehow managed to do. As we saw earlier, Blacephalon was the 3rd most represented deck in this particular tournament, and Jesse somehow not only dodged all of them, but also won a Blacephalon matchup. Because they were only running 3 Blacephalon, he knocked all of them out, and they had no more good attackers. So he's able to actually even overcome Blacephalon without weakness, without Tapu Fini. So no weakness guard energy. And the reason Jesse told me no weakness guard, no Tapu Fini is because he said it hurt more matchups than it helps. Zacian cannot have a weakness guard energy on it while still paying for that 3 metal attack cost for Brave Blade. Zamazenta can. Luke Metal, of course, can, but Zacian cannot. So you're adding some extra consistency by playing just pure metal And you can also get metal off Intrepid Sword and attach it to Zacian directly. That does not work with Weakness Guard energy. We see a pretty standard list. The metal goggles going at a count of 4. Of course, you got the 2 Zamazenta for the Eternatus matchup, but we've seen Eternatus players actually react to this kind of deck, and Jesse ultimately was knocked out of top 8 by an Eternatus player we'll talk about in a little bit. Hammers, of course, just annoying. And if you're playing ADP or anything that just needs manual, slow attachments, you hit the hammers, you're good. I think Jesse told me he hit something around 4 hammers out of 21, missing 17 hammers. Something ridiculous like that. Just didn't have a good day on hammers, but still topped. So well done there to Jesse. The double Malalana is just critical for getting some healing, resetting damage. Marnie's, research, boss, straightforward. The Pokédoll. One thing I see Luke Metal players doing a lot now, no Fion, but you can use Pokédoll to pivot in and out of the active, reset your Brave Blade on Zacian, maybe even stall out a prize, and also stop yourself from decking out. The Galarian Stunfisk is a great inclusion if this Pokemon is in the active spot and is damaged by an opponent's attack, even if it is knocked out. Discard an energy from the attacking Pokemon. Of course, that is going to be useful if you just need to quickly give a one prizer, set yourself up, discard a water energy from ADP should it swing into you, hit some hammers on a Zacian. Maybe you can bring that matchup back, and your Zacian cannot be one-shot thanks to the metal goggles. So Galarian Stunfisk slowing down the game a little bit, and it's a nice one-prize attacker to weave in. And overall, Jesse, well done from the games that I watched. Kevin coming in here at number, can I do a count? 8765. Kevin coming in at number 5. So this is the Eternatus build that I've been talking about the entire time, and when this was first brought to my attention before the Hegster event, I was very confused as to the consistency of the deck. Now we have no Zigzagoons, and Poison is going to be making up for those damage counters to get those numbers, to get the one-shots. But I was very concerned with the consistency of Croagunk, Toxicroak, Eternatus, Eternatus VMAX. We're playing 2 Pokemon that need to evolve. Now, of course, Crobat is there to boost it. Galarian Slowbro is critical to the strategy. Filling up your bench is going to be no problem. You just throw Croagunk down, you throw Crobat, you get a 1 Slowbro. You just need 1 Slowbro and the Hoopa. And I was really concerned about the consistency of this deck. Missing energy attachments is the most painful thing when you're playing something like Eternatus. We see a little bit extra energy here. I think we're slightly on the high side at 10 with the 6 Darkness, 2 Capture, 2 Hiding. Hiding is going to be critical. We've seen a lot of Eternatus players move away from playing special energy because Zamazenta can discard a special energy, and Zamazenta is going to wall Eternatus VMAX. If you lose your hiding energy, you lose your capture energy. That just sets you that much farther behind. But in this deck, it doesn't really matter that much because you're looking to take very long kind of game knockouts with Toxicroak to get past that Zamazenta. We see the Eternatus lists that are running Sableye and Hoopa or Spiritomb, maybe able to take out one Zamazenta but not the other one, and that's kind of where the poison comes in. You can take off turns and give up some prizes because you are able to poison them out of the game. So Galarian Slowbro in the active is going to be able to poison a Zamazenta, do some damage. Dark City will get it to retreat. Hiding energy will be able to let it retreat. Meanwhile, you can stick the Darkness energies on Eternatus. Dark City, of course, giving all basics free retreat. Now, you got to be careful because it doesn't give free retreat to Toxicroak. We still see these switches in there as a reaction to the paralysis that you can get from Pikarom or Muck in a Alolan Muck. Hoopa is a great attacker if you're switching so much with Hiding. Dark City, switch, 90 damage flat. And, of course, we see the research, Marnie's, Pokegear, so the general draw supporters. 3 copies of Boss's Orders. I feel like I haven't played this list, but I wouldn't miss the 4th boss. I always feel like it just hits the discard. It's not like you can get it back with Eldegoss in this particular list. This looks like just a very consistent, straightforward Eternatus list that's spec'd out to beat ADP because now it's super easy, right? If ADP plays a Big Charm, who cares? What Toxicroak does, by the way, for those of you guys who don't know, put 2 more damage counters on your opponent's poison Pokemon during Pokemon Checkup. And that's 2 damage counters going to their turn from Galarian Slowbro, and then going back onto your turn. So that's 4 damage right there, right? If someone attached a Big Charm to ADP, they have 4 damage counters, bringing them down to 370 health, right? Yeah, that is correct. I could do basic math. 280 plus 30 from the Big Charm, 310, right? Minus 40. You get the one shot with your Eternatus, assuming you can get a full bench out. And so it's looking like a great counter to things like ADP because you have that poison damage, ensuring those one-shots. A great counter to Luke Metal, which was one of Eternatus's less favorable matchups. And overall, I think maybe another way to start playing Eternatus more so than the Viridian Forest route, because Dark City taking up the slot of Viridian Forest, taking up the slot of Black Market, which I haven't seen much Black Market lately. All right, coming in at number 8765, number 4. We're on the top 4 now. Is ADP Hammers. Now, Tomy here did have to get into a mirror match, and the ADP Hammers mirror match, I'm not gonna lie, is a little bit stressful. It is he who flips the most heads, in my opinion. We do have the big charm on the list, but overall pretty straightforward. This ADP list is opting for the Chaotic Spell Oranguru to save combo pieces in case you're going to play a Research or a Marnie. But overall, nothing too crazy in the list. The Reset Stamp. I wonder how Tomy felt about the Reset Stamp, because sometimes it just feels like you Reset Stamp your opponent in a boss. I can't tell you how many times that happened during my Players' Cup qualifiers. So the Reset Stamp, you know, if it shows up in the early hand, sucks. If it shows up in the late game and you can get a real good Reset Stamp to a low hand and have your opponent miss a turn of action, then that could win you the game in a format where we're not playing that many turns, right? You miss one turn in a 6-turn game and you've missed 1 out of 6 turns. It just feels bad. So overall, just a consistent list that Hammers were inserted into. Nothing too crazy here. All right, top 3 time. Coming in, we have another Poison Eternatus list. Is this literally... this is Wildfang's list here, but it is almost the same list as you can see. No, it's the same list. They just move the pictures of Com and Switch. So Wildfang's playing the same list. Don't need to break it down. Looks good. All right. Marcos Fuentes, one of the, I believe, Players' Cup Invitational players piloting Centiskorch previously. Marco is piloting Mew Mew. Now, this is a deck that I want to know. Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Or come over to my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/DoShampoo and tell me what you think of Welder Mewtwo, because I feel like I cannot get this deck to be super consistent. Now, we do see 4 Cherish Ball, 4 Quick Ball, only 2 Dedenne in this list. Marco actually opting to play a Jirachi version of the list instead of just going hard on the Dedennes. And because there's Jirachi in the list, we are now playing an extra copy of Switch. Generally, we only see 3 Switch. And we're also playing Scoop Up Nets, and thanks to the Scoop Up Nets, you can add Zigzagoon in to help you get some clean knockouts, just in case you need to do just a little bit more math. For example, Flare Strike 230 on a Pika Rom, Zigzagoon ping, 4 energy, you're good to go. Goodbye Pika Rom. Or maybe even get some damage counters down on an ADP. But this is pretty straightforward as far as a list goes. Although I'm interested to see a Jirachi list got second place, because I feel like that's really been phased out by just going harder on Dedennes and just not playing any Jirachis. But the 3 Mew Mew, that's going to be your main attacker to Dedenne. You're going to want to be Dedenneing all the time. Crobat. Now, you don't have too much bench space, so you can't play more than 1 Crobat generally, whether or not you're playing Jirachi. The Zigzagoon, like I said, for the Scoop Up Net. Incineroar is a cool inclusion. Crushing Punch discards a special energy from your opponent's active Pokemon, but super deadly. Darkest Tornado GX. This attack does 50 more damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. This is a cool surprise card if you're playing a closed deck list format, but Hegster's is an open deck list format. You slap that Incineroar in the discard and just do a massive amount of damage. 50 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon, plus 10. But the discard Crushing Punch, right? If someone was playing Aurora Energy on ADP, well, detach, you're good to go. Crushing Punch, get rid of that Aurora Energy. So that's what Incineroar is in there for. Naganadel snipes Dedennes. Everyone knows what Naganadel does. Reshiram and Charizard. Now, of course, Outrage going to be very powerful if your Mewtwo is damaged, if your opponent needs to line up a 2-shot. Flare Strike for 230. That is usually going to be your Zacian killing attack. You can't use it on the following turn, though. Double Blaze GX, if you can get 6 energy on a Mew Mew, is a great way to get past a Decidueye, even with a big Parasol on it, because it ignores effects. You just do 300 damage, get past it. Now, there's no Tool Scrapper here, so that is how you're going to have to sometimes get past a Decidueye, even though it seems like it's a lot of resources to commit. 6 energy for 300 damage, but ignores effects. Decidueye, of course, walling off all GX and V Pokemon. So Reshiram, Charizard, mostly going to be used for a Zacian killer, though. Victini you can use to set up, but it also can really punish something like Scorch. Now, we don't see the Indeedee in this list, which is kind of a soft counter to Shadowbox Mimikyu, which I don't really think anyone's going to play. But Indeedee is a great counter to Scorch, because Indeedee can really do damage, right? The more energy that's on the Scorch, the more damage it's going to do. But we have Victini here instead. And I think this will, coming up in the future, be scrapped out for something like the Incineroar V coming from Champion's Path. But that's what we got for now. Charizard GX is going to just be your ADP killer. It does 300 flat damage. And should they attach a Big Charm, we don't have a Tool Scrapper, but we do have the Zigzagoon to do 10 damage. And then you do 300. Goodbye ADP with Big Charm on it. Marshadow to get rid of those Chaotic Swells that we see ADP playing. Mewtwo to put things back on top of the deck. Now, this is baby Mewtwo, and so Scoop Up Net will work with it. And that's one of the upsides of running the Jirachi engine. Muck. Now, Muck, of course, is going to be able to get past Eternatus, right? You want to reset stamp your opponent to a low hand, play the Nasty Goo mix, have them miss a turn, maybe even miss an attachment for a follow-up Eternatus. But Severe Poison is key in the Decidugoons matchup, and we didn't really see too much Decidugoons here. So Nasty Goo mix is going to be useful for if you need your opponent to miss a turn, if you hit a sick reset stamp to 1, right? You give up a 3 prize, you give up a 2 prizer like that Victini V or Incineroar V in the future, reset stamp to 1, Nasty Goo, miss a turn, Severe Poison getting past Decidueye, because Poison, 8 damage counters a turn, that's nuts. Coming up here for Welder, we want to Weld. We only see 3 Giant Hearth though, that's a little bit of a consistency cut. And if there are Chaotic Swells being thrown everywhere and you can't find Marshadow, right, you only Quick Ball Marshadow out, you can't Cherish Ball it. The extra Giant Hearth, I don't know if Marco missed it, but obviously he got second place with it. Losing to ADP, by the way, which is the matchup that you think Marco would win. Marco did lose 2-1. But the boss's orders, everyone knows what that does at this point. Very consistent 4 Quick Ball, 4 Cherish. You'd need that. You cannot cut any of those. Switch, Scoop Up Net, 1 Reset Stamp. Now, there's something to be said about the 1 Reset Stamp. I feel like 2 Reset Stamp, if one of them shows up in your hand before your opponent takes a significant knockout, right, you Reset Stamp them to 4 or Reset Stamp them to 6 when they have a big hand, maybe. It just doesn't feel good. So 1 Reset Stamp, hide it at the bottom of your deck, get it out at the end of the game, and it could potentially win you the match if your opponent misses off a Reset Stamp to 1, right? You want to play the Mew Mew, Victini, Stamp to 1. Big Charm, of course, going to be buffing your Dedennes and Crobats. Now that is going to be so ADP cannot simply gust up a Dedenne, gust up a Crobat, and knock it out. Big Charm moves both Dedenne and Crobat out of that 180 damage, 180 health range so that it can survive. Stealthy Hood, I was saying earlier, Indeedee is a soft counter to Shadowbox Mimikyu. Stealthy Hood is also a counter to that. And it will prevent damage counters from Zigzagoon going down on Mew Mew. And then the Horror Energy is just busted. You can do some cool math. If people have to swing into a Horror Energy, that'll be 20 damage counters down onto them. Without further ado, your champion is going to be frontman Nolan Benson, playing a very similar deck to what I've been piloting lately. This is going to be ADP Hammers. Now, a couple of interesting inclusions in the deck. We did see the Duraludon, which frontman Nolan did start at one of the very, very final Grand Finals rounds. Started the Duraludon. It's pretty much useless if you don't run a Decidugoons. We were expecting Decidugoons. He teched for it, and it looks like the tech didn't hurt him because he won, but also it wasn't needed. I don't think... I didn't watch every single game that Nolan played, but Duraludon didn't really... I don't expect did anything unless he ran into one of the 2 Decidugoons players. We have the 4 Boss's Orders, no Pokemon catchers in the list. 3 Marnies, kind of soft countering the Blacephalon players. 4 Hammers, 4 Switch. We're cutting a Air Balloon for a Switch here, going down to 3 Cherish Ball. You got to make concessions somewhere for the Crushing Hammer, so we're cutting a Cherish Ball. We're cutting some Energy Spinners, but we put the Viridian in. We are not playing Swells in this list, and we're not playing the extra energy like you guys saw earlier. Tool Scrapper is going to be key for getting rid of those big charms that Marco Fuentes was playing for Dedennes and Crobats. Also good in the Luke Metal match. We're a little low on energy switches. And so what that's telling me is Nolan's playing a little bit slower of a game. If we get the turn 1 Alter Creation going second, great. But I think Nolan wants to go first generally. And we saw that in both the mirror match and in the match against Mew Mew. Hammers in the Mew Mew matchup are critical because we don't see a big charm here. So ADP can go down from a Charizard GX. So what happens in the Mew Mew matchup is Marcus Fuentes wants to discard Charizard DX, go first, and attach. The following turn, we want to see a Weld and attach. A Horror Energy is nice there as well. That'll be 300 on the ADP, and that's just straight up knockout, and that'll really set Nolan behind. Hitting a Crushing Hammer, going second against Mew Mew, is critical in this list because you will stop them from hitting 300 guaranteed on your ADP that next turn, and even better if you can hit away a Horror Energy. There's a lot of dig in this deck with 3 Dedenne, 1 Crobat, right? Research. We want to find those hammers and we want to hit them. And having 4 hammers, hammers in the early game, you want to see them at the top of your deck, is when you want to play them. But overall, congratulations, Nolan. Fantastic list. ADP did take it home with 3 ADP hopping into Hegster's number 16 tournament. 3 ADP hitting the top 8. Thank you guys for watching. I've been your host, Nikki from Still Shampoo, filling in for Ethan. Hit me up on Twitter at Still Shampoo, or watch me for more analysis and video games. PTCGO at twitch.tv/Still Shampoo. We'll see you guys some other time.